Welcome, everybody. We're doing Masters of Art. We have Robyn Young here. She's going to give us a presentation on, now I forget, self-publishing and visual art, in your art, sorry. If you write a book, how would you incorporate your artwork in that book? She will show you the journey of how the artwork goes to a publisher, and then she will explain how her paintings get published into that book. So the process, maybe the cost of it, right. So just hang out and enjoy.
Yay.
Thank you. Well, I'm a self-taught artist. I've worked for lawyers all my life. And then in 1997, I started doing watercolors. I had asked, I study women's history. I do a lot of programs on women's history. And I asked a woman artist friend of mine, would she do a sketch of Dr. Ann Preston's home, which is out in Westbrook, in Chester County. And she had all the materials for like 6 months, and she sent them back to me, and she said, I don't have the time to do this. So out of frustration, I just set everything, across the room, and I just thought, okay, and I was kind of frustrated at the time. I was going through a divorce, and this was my very first painting. It's called The Pink Tree, but really, the leaves aren't really pink in that tree. It was red leaves, but it was the sun shining through the leaves, which made it look pink. But this was my backyard, and the Doe Runs Cemetery, it's an old cemetery, was over this stone wall in my backyard. And when I was going through the divorce, I thought, oh, is this going to be my life? Is it going to be in the cemetery, or is it going to be on this side of the wall? And so I put in these flowers to make it alive, and the green to give it life. But then, when I was almost finished, I noticed there were 2 orange eyes looking out at me, and it scared me. It looked like the devil. And that trunk was the nose. And what did I do? I picked up pink paint, and I just went like this to cover up the 2 eyes, because they scared me. And so that was my very first painting. It meant a lot to me. You can see it's getting worn, and it's getting ragged, so I try to keep it in an envelope most of the time. So I ended up going and living in a Quaker community. I went to 4 years of Catholic Cardinal O'Hara. I went all girls. It wasn't co-ed yet. My mother said, girls don't go to college. You're going, this was my senior year, graduation week from high school. My mother said, you're going with me on the train tomorrow. I set up a job interview for you at a law firm. And I had taken the civil service exam at school, but I was waiting for the results. So I went with my mom on the train into Philly, and I got the job. And so 25 years later, I thought, do you want me to speak louder?
No, you're fine. I'm just going to maybe do a little bit of interpretation. I hope that doesn't bother you.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So anyway, I forget what I was, where I was.
On the train, you got the job.
You got the job.
Got the job, and 25 years later, I thought, I didn't even pick this. My mother picked this. And so I ended up applying to Pendle Hill, which is a Quaker community. I had left the church because the church would not marry me, because when I went to premarital counseling, they asked me if I was on birth control pills, and I said yes. And they said, we refused to marry you in the church, so I got kicked out of the church. I went around for 10 years and would go to any church anybody would take you to. And I ended up going to a Quaker meeting. And so I became a Quaker. After 10 years of attending, I became a Quaker. And so I would ask different people in friends meetings, well, what is the Hicksite? What is an Orthodox Quaker? And everybody would give me different answers. So I decided to go and live in a Quaker community called Pendle Hill. And I don't know if you know where it is. It's in Wallingford, in Delaware County, next to Swarthmore College. And they teach art. I took a course on weaving on a 4-harness loom. I took pottery, paper making classes, and I studied the history of Quakerism, John's Gospel, and when I left there, I thought, and I didn't want to stay there. I tried to leave because I said to my advisor, everybody here has master's degrees. I don't even have a bachelor's degree. All I have is a paralegal certificate. And he said, no, we want you to stay here. You're what we consider an independent scholar. And so they talked me into staying. And so I did, and I started making art. And I actually formed an Artist Way group on campus, because I was always organizing. So I did that. They let me use part of the library on a certain night every week, and we formed our Artist Way group. I'm sure you all know what the Artist Way is. Julia Cameron's 12-week course in recovering your creative self. And so I did that, and now I live the Artist Way. I do the morning pages every day, take myself on an artist date every week, and so I just made it my life. And anyway, so at Pendle Hill, people would, there was a gentleman there, and he said, they didn't teach watercolor. I was still doing watercolors. And so on days when I didn't have classes, I would drive out and find these women's homes because I wanted to do watercolors of their homes. And when I got to the homes, I was like, the first one I did was Dr. Ann Preston. She was the first woman to get a degree from the Women's Medical College in Philadelphia in 1853. And this house is in West Grove. It was used on the Underground Railroad. I went into the Mutter Museum. I read her funeral program. It said she liked purple flowers. And so I put the purple flowers in the painting. In this house, all that stands there now is just the silo and the house. But the owners told me that, because my hobby is putting up historical markers at these homes. And I put up 29 throughout the state. But what I try to do is do a painting of each one of the women's homes. And so this one was for Dr. Ann Preston. This one is Grace Anna Lewis. She lived in media, and she was a scientist. And she lived with her nephew. He was an artist. And so every year, I do a Christmas card. And so I make them into Christmas cards. Here's another one, Anna Howard Shaw's house. She was a great orator of the women's rights movement. She probably made 10,000 speeches in her lifetime, and she lived in media. This is Rebecca Lucan's home in Cokesville. And so I did all these paintings, and then I thought, well, who's going to see them? And you always have to put them in exhibits. Here's another one. This is, Grandma Moses of Chester County, Ida Ella Ruth Jones, African-American woman. She lived in East Fallowfield Township. And this is her house. And I don't know if you can see it, but my friend who told me about her, I painted her in, and she's the tree pointing to the house. But she's African-American, so once in a while she says, can you see that painting with me in it? So I try to make them, personal. So anyway, I ended up doing note cards every year for Christmas, and this is a form of publishing, really. I bought a color copier, and the trick with making the note cards is you have to darken the color, because it'll come out lighter every time you make that copy. So I darken it, and then I shrink it, and these are the note cards to that, my first painting, the pink tree. And I use these, like when I do presentations, I use them as thank you notes to send to people. I belong to several women's organizations, BPW, Business and Professional Women, and we, when women in our group, our club, get hurt, someone dies in their family or something, we have a program where we send a card, so I always send them a different one, I have a whole bunch of these. And so I ended up, move this thing. I ended up trying to get the word out, and people would, sometimes when the newspaper would want to do an article on me, somebody would say, oh, why don't you come meet me at, where the marker's going to go, and bring a bonnet or something to wear. And the bonnet, I've done a painting of the woman's home, so I would just bring it with me, and then I would hold it in the picture, and that's how my paintings got into newspapers. And people would say, "Oh, I saw your painting in the newspaper," and they put it in color, you know. So, and then I knew people, and I would ask them, "Can I put them in like the radio station WCHE in Westchester, 1520 AM?" I got the first 3 historical markers. David Shar, who owned the station, invited me on, and he said, you know, "You should come in and talk to Paul Rodabaugh. He's the Chester County historian." So I went in and I was invited on the show, and we talked for an hour on the air. And then he said, "This is really interesting. Why don't you come back next week?" So I came back next week, and we talked again about women's history on the air. And so we went out to breakfast after we were done, and he kept saying to me, "What you're doing is cutting edge, putting up these markers for women's history. Keep doing what you're doing." And he said it with such urgency. And I thought, well, whatever, you know, he's an old man, whatever. So I said, "What we're doing is 200 years late, Paul. You know, like these markers have never been put up for women." And so then I started listening to the radio station. Next morning I'm driving to work, working in a law firm in Westchester, and I hear that Paul died during the night. And so I was very upset because I had just met this wonderful man. We had history in common. He was encouraging me, you know. So I went into my boss and I said, "I've got to go up to the radio station and just go there, you know." And so I walked in the radio station. I saw David Shar, the owner. I said, "My history buddy, he's gone." And he said, "Why don't you take over Paul's show?" And I said, "Oh no, I don't know anything about radio." I started backing out of the station. And he goes, "Well, what do you?" I said, "I don't know anything about radio." He said, "Well, what do you know?" And I said, "All I know is women's history." He goes, "Well, get on there and talk about women's history." And I ended up doing the show for 6 years until they merged with another station and they changed all the programming. So that one act sometimes is synchronicity. I believe, like in the artist's way, these little things that you think don't mean anything, they do add up. So anyway, let me get back to this. So when I went to write a book, the first time, this is my first book, which got an award from the Heritage Commission of Delaware County. It got a Preservation and Publication Award. 2 women from the Aston Historical Society had submitted it. I didn't know them. Now I'm good friends with them. But at the time I didn't know them. So I called around for 3 years. I researched publishers. And I went to like formal publishers. The one guy said, "Well, how many pages is it going to be?" I said, 750. The guy laughed me out of the room. He said, "No way is anybody going to buy that. You can't sell books that size." And so I ended up knocking it down to 200 pages, 175 women. And the title, I had a working title. I had this little book on my bookshelf just called Penn's Woods. And one day I walked by it and I thought, perfect title, Women in Penn's Woods. Perfect title for my book. Just came to me like that. And so I didn't know what, because of the woods, I thought now I need a cover that's like woods. And then I thought of my painting. And so I took it to an Office Max or like a Staples, and they scanned it in, the first one, and then they sent it to Morris Publisher, is who I finally found, who does the work that there's a couple publishers that are, I even checked out Amish publishers in this area because I thought, you know, buy local. 3 times the amount of the cost if I did that. And so I found this company, Morris Publishing, which they're in Nebraska. And this is their price list. So it depends on the size of the pages. And they did the cover, they designed it and everything. And then these are the other 3 themes which I showed you. And that's my second book, which is a Shutterfly stock cover. Because I did it that way because my sister, who is 68 years old, said to me, "What does suffrage mean?" And I thought, nobody's going to know what it means if she doesn't know. And so I decided to put the stock cover with votes for women because that kind of tells you what suffrage is. So I did it that way. Then I put 3 paintings on the inside of this book, 3 of the houses of the suffragists that I had researched. I copyrighted my paintings. This is what a copyright looks like. It kind of looks like a car title.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this, I did this in 2006. I did 6 paintings, because if you do a series of paintings, you only have to pay one fee, $60. If you do them all separate, you're paying $60 for each. But I called it, because they were all watercolors, I called it Water Series 6. I had to make something up at the last minute. And so I did, and then this is just, you know, I'm not giving away anything that isn't public here. You know, everything, this is all public information. This is in the Library of Congress. So, and they send this to you, and then I moved. This is my old address in Coatesville. So then when I moved, I sent them a letter updating, you know, my address, just in case. So that's just to protect yourself. I work for lawyers. Did learn a few things working for lawyers for 40 years. I've had a lot of lawyers tell me to go to law school. I have taken courses at Villanova Law School. I did found the Chester County Paralegal Association. And so working for lawyers pays off, because you learn a lot working for them. And get used to criticism, because they're tough. You know, they yell at you a lot, and you gotta be tough, you know, and take it and not get mad at them, you know? And I was telling a few people here earlier, my first painting, my mother, when she saw it, she said, "Oh, but it's not done." I said, "What do you mean it's not done, Mom?" She said, "You didn't do the top. You didn't finish the tree." And I was so like, oh, I thought about it for like months. My mother criticizes everything I do. And so then I came across this saying that says, "You don't go to the hardware store for milk." And that perfectly explains my mother and her criticism. And so my mom can say whatever she wants, it doesn't bother me. And you have to get that tough skin, you know, to put up, for people to criticize your work. You can't be like, go home and cry about it. Because something, you know, I have some people, they like certain things of mine, but then they'll say, "Oh, I don't like that other thing you did." And I said, "That's fine." You know, you have to take it like that. You can't get upset. And that's hard to do. It is hard. Not everybody can do it. I also incorporated, I came up with the name Queen's Perch Press, LLC. So I made an LLC just to protect my own property. And if you have an LLC, you don't always need to get an attorney to do that. If you don't have, you know, if you're just doing a book for yourself, you don't need to do all that, you know. But if you're going to sell things, I just would recommend going to an attorney or doing it yourself. You can check Pennsylvania Corporation Bureau. You check to make sure no one's using a similar name, and if you know, make sure the name's available. I think the fee to do it online is $125, and you file the articles of incorporation and also what they call a docketing statement. That's it. The state sends you the thing. A lawyer will probably charge you anywhere from $750 to $1,500 to do the same thing. They don't want to tell you can do it yourself, but a lot of our clients today are doing that themselves. And then if they get stuck, they come into us and we have to unravel the problem. That's all right. We're problem solvers. And so I also brought this price list just to show you. This is the 5.5 by 8.5 size, and this is what that looks like. And I also have the one for the they have another size, 8.5 by 11 size. But the one that I worked with is this. So if you want to order your pages here, how many pages? So my first book had 199 pages. So it would be in here, 191. So I ordered 100 books. So I would pay $5.06 a book. Okay? And then if you want to order 200, it goes down, your price would be $4.61 per book. If you sell that book for $22, which is what I sell mine for, then I make a good profit. I was offered a contract by the History Press for the second book, because they said I had a platform. because all the markers I've gotten throughout the state, I've gone all through the state, so that's where the platform came in. But guess how much I would have made per book as a profit? $1.50.
Oh, wow.
And the other way, I'm gonna make $15, okay? So, and to get published by a publisher, I mean, they want you to go all around the state. You have to give them, I had to give them like 3 pages of bookstores and contacts and all my contacts for them to even consider me. And when I sent them the manuscript, they're like, oh, a manuscript. They were shocked that I sent a manuscript. But it's not worth it. I had really thought about it. I thought, do I want the prestige of publishing with a national publisher, or do I want to self-publish? And before that got such a bad rap, but now a lot of people are self-publishing. Because when I set up, a lot of people say, oh, you can sign up for these other companies. If you look at the way I set it up, well, even the print, when I'm typing it, I set the margins just like you see here. That's how it looks on my computer screen. I make the margins small. I don't ever have to repaginate it when I'm done or format. It's exactly how it is as I'm typing it. I can move the lines to the next page. I do pay $20 to the publisher. They will paginate it for you for that $20. So it saves you from having to do that and try to figure that out. But it's not as expensive. I brought these 2 bills, the bills that I need. Okay, so this one is, now you do pay for the color, which a lot of people don't do, but I do. Because Beatrix Potter, when she did her Peter Rabbit series, she wanted them small to be held in a child's hand, and she wanted those interior ones to be in color. And she went to a lot of trouble to do that. And I thought, I'm going to do the same thing she does. And I put mine all in color inside in case women may never get to see these markers. At least they'll see what they look like. So I put these color photo, I made them all color. So I pay extra for that every time I do a run of 100 books. So I do usually 100 at a time because you have to store them. And I have 2 books now. They're in my dining room, you know, in between like different furniture. But you can't keep them in the basement. So I just drag it. They weigh 55 pounds each. They're heavy. And so that's why I pay this extra, $286 extra every time I do 100 books. But if you didn't want to do that, look, you're artists, you are going to want to do the color.
Yeah.
You are going to want to pay that extra. But this is what it is. So for 110 books, that's what they give you an overrun of 10. They even sent me sometimes 15 extra ones at no charge. They are nice like that. So that's what it comes out to, $937 just for the 100 when I reorder it. Here's what it costs to do it for the first run. Okay, well, I have the other one here. This is when you do the first run. This is a longer bill, and it has full color interior pages. There's that $286. Digital photos, $78 they charge you for sending them digitally. So you can play with the photos, make them darker, lighter, but whatever you send to them finally, that's what it's going to be. They're not going to play around with it and make it darker or lighter. And so that's cover design assistance. I paid $275 for that. So that's extra. But if you know what you really want, you know, you don't have to pay these extra things. Barcode setup fee, $20. A lot of people don't put the barcode on because, you know, if you put these books, say, in Barnes & Noble, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to charge the $25 and they're going to give you like $6. You know, they're going to keep like most of the money. So it's not worth it to me. I would rather just sell them myself, you know. I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to educate people about women's history, really. So this total, just to publish, you know, 110 books for everything is only $1,400. So I don't think that's a lot of money. But when you go to the publisher, they want to hire a staff, a design staff. That's where all the overhead comes, with all these people that they hire. But if you're good, like I've been the newsletter editor of every organization I've ever been a member of, all the Quaker meetings I've ever been a member of, I've been the newsletter editor for, and I used to write for the Chester County Day paper. For Chester County Day, they would publish articles, and one time the editor said to me, "You're the only one that we never have to edit your articles." And I didn't even think I was a good writer till he said that. See how you always think the worst of yourself? You don't think you're good enough, until some stranger tells you. And I've had some of my paintings, I've had them at shows, and people come back and they're going to buy it. And I put like $400 on the one for the ocean, and this guy kept coming back. He said, "That would look great in my beach house." And I said, "Mom, I don't want him to buy that. I don't want to sell them." Like you were saying, you want to sell yours?
I do.
It's like Robyn, my other Robyn.
It depends.
Yeah, some of them I don't
You
want to
get
let go
attached to
because I do get attached to them, So, and then there's other things like promotional items, postcards, which there's some back there that you can have. And then they'll send you the cover, and then you sign off on it. You have to, like, your initial it. This is the proof. And so that's what it looks like when they send it to you. And then, and then this was the postcard. I get postcards because you can put a sticker on the other side and send it to like different organizations saying, "Here's my new book, would you like me to come and do a program?" Because they're always looking for speakers. I brought some of this is just a little thing. If you contact Morris Publishing, I told them that I would be doing a talk about them tonight. And I don't mean to put down the history press or anything, but I just wanted to tell you, I went to a marker dedication in Williamsport, and I bought one of those Arcadia books, on Williamsport, the town, and I happened to be sitting next to lunch, at lunch with the author. And I said to her, "Oh, I bought your book today." She goes, "Oh, I made $1.50. And that's all these people make on those books. So really a lot of, they're not in it to make the money, it's just, and so this is what they send you if you ask. There's the price list. So if anybody wants this, you can have this as a sample one. But that's all they sent you. When I sent for a sample, they sent me a whole box with like sample books and all.
Well, they want to show you.
Yeah, and so a lot of organizations do this for cookbooks, where
Right.
their organizations do that, the churches. No, it's just the cover, what it looks like. But when you first get it and you see it, you want to kiss the thing, you know what I mean? And you're so happy.
Yeah.
Like the first time when I have a filing cabinet, that's the last one. The lawyer I know, he went out of business, he retired. So I bought like 6 of his filing cabinets, and they're filled with my women, like over 1,000 folders of women's history. And my first book, and I got it in the mail, and all the boxes were sitting on my porch. I opened it up. I was like ready. I was crying. I ran down the basement and I showed it to all the filing cabinets. I told you I wouldn't forget you. And all the women that were in there. That's what I did. Because I didn't want to forget them. Because people, there are a lot of important women in history. I do a lot of talks. 29 markers for women's history, and I just put one up in Springfield, in front of the Springfield Mall in September for Carolyn Kilgore, who tried to go to law school at the University of Pennsylvania, and they wouldn't let her in 1871, so she sued the law school for 10 years, litigation, and they finally said, "Okay, you can go to law school." So they let her in, and then they wouldn't let her take the bar exam, so she had to sue for 2 years to take the bar exam. Then they let her do that, and then they wouldn't let her practice law in the courts. She had to sue again, and then they finally let her, but they only let her practice in the Register of Wills and Orphans Court. And so, 14-year battle just to practice law, and she was a doctor before she was doing it as a legal test case. They said she was a legal brain, she knew what she was doing. But I just got a marker for her, because how could you not honor a woman like that? And when I told, the University of Pennsylvania that I got the marker, they weren't interested in coming out and attending the dedication or anything. I thought it was a time to, the olive branch, but, so that's what I do, that's my hobby, is just going around putting up markers for women's history. So, anybody have any questions, or, yes?
How do you find out about these women that nobody else heard of?
Well, I do a lot of reading, and sometimes I'll go through, like I'll buy a biographical dictionary of women doctors or women scientists, and it's like it has 750 pages of a little paragraph, and I'll go through every paragraph and I just look for Pennsylvania. And if it's one, I put a Post-it note, and then I research that woman. And I find a lot that way. And I just I already went through every historical society's website in the state and looked at in their gift shop to see what books they offer. And that's how I found a lot of women that way. But, people said, there's no women in Delaware County. There are like 6 markers in Delaware County now. I'm like, oh wait, I can tell you, So, it's fun. It's really fun. I feel like my mother said, do you feel like Nancy Drew? I said, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Because you're always looking for, and the state, the state Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, I thought, they probably hate me. Here comes another one from Robyn, So I was up in Honesdale, putting up a marker for a woman who was a champion billiards player. And and the guy, the man, I saw the guy from the state come, and I thought, that was kind of hiding from him. He saw me, and I said, I guess I'm a thorn in your side, aren't I? And he goes, no, you're not. He said, when we see one come from you, we know it's going to be good.
Well, they trust it too.
And so when he got up to do his speech, he said, do you know that doing one of these nominations for a marker is the equivalent of writing a thesis? And he said, Robyn has been sending us 7 a year. Well, what happened was Jerry Lenfest, Mr. Lenfest here in the Inquiry, started Comcast. He was a philanthropist. He gave $14 million to the Williamson Trade School. My mother was the registrar there. And she said, Mr. Lenfest wants to give away all of his money before he dies because he doesn't want to leave it to these administrative heavy nonprofits, and there goes his money, So, so I every marker that I put in, you need to raise $2,000 for each one. And I had one for Grace Anna Lewis, but I had approval, and I only had $500, and I needed the other $1,500. It was November, and you only have 14 months to get the thing in the ground. And so I thought, nobody's going to have me talk in November and December because that's the holidays. They're all going to have their parties. There's no way I'm going to raise this money, and I'm going to have to start from scratch to get it in again. And so I decided to write to Mr. Lenfest. So I asked a friend of mine who knew his address. They got me the address. So I sent like a business plan to Mr. Lenfest and said, could you donate $1,500 for this one marker? Within a week, I had a check for $25,000.
Well, to support the.
And he said you are to use it within 3 years. And so for those 3 years, I went down the basement.
You
and
were
I was
working.
Open the drawer. You're a definite. I was pulling them out of the drawer.
How much research or how much do you have to give them to get that marker?
You have to. They have a nomination form, 4 pages, but then the attachments.
You have to prove.
Yeah, and a person has to be deceased, and they have to have national significance. Can't just be state significance. Has to have national. So when it's hard to prove that,
Yeah.
Sometimes, like the lady, the seeing eye dog lady, she was from Wayne, and she lived on the main line. And then she married a senator in New York and raised prize cattle. He died, she came back to the main line, remarried, went to Switzerland. They were working with German Shepherd dogs over in Switzerland with the Swiss Army. They were training them how to find soldiers in the snow. And they were also training them with the blind. And so she brought a man from the United States over to Switzerland, and they trained him as a guy with a seeing eye dog. He came back to the United States, she came back, they moved to Jersey, and that's where they started the Seeing Eye Foundation. the state would not give me a marker, even though she lived here 26 years. They said she didn't live here long enough. I said, George Washington sleeps somewhere one night. And you give her a marker. My lady lives here 26 years and you won't give her a marker? That doesn't seem right. So sometimes I'll resubmit. I'll wait a couple years, do more research. Same with the lady that invented the Kewpie doll. That Kewpie doll lady was born in Scranton. And, you know, they moved out to Missouri when she was 3 years old. And they said, you know, and that Kewpie doll, those Kewpies were used like during the suffrage movement and posters, you know, the little Kewpies holding the signs, votes for women, give mama the right to vote, they were carrying the little signs. And, you know, the first shipment of the Kewpies were sunk in the English Channel during World War I. They never made it to the United States. But they wouldn't give me a marker for her either, so I'll have to try to resubmit that one, because I think, you know, they should. Doesn't matter, they were born here, they're Pennsylvania, you know.
So all that work that you did is for nothing?
Just, yeah,
That's terrible.
there's a couple of them like that,
Yeah. Huh.
you know. And I have one now I'm waiting to put up in Pittsburgh for Mary Roberts Reinhardt. She was the mystery writer. She wrote The Bat, which later became Batman and Robin. But she was from Pittsburgh. And a man co-wrote one. He submitted a nomination the same year I did. And it's held up because he wants to move the location, and so, you know, still waiting. But now the state is paying for them. I used to have to raised $50,000 for those markers. And so, you know, now the state's paying for them, so I don't have to raise the money. So this year, I'm putting in a few. New deadline is April 1st. I thought, oh, what a deadline, April Fool's Day. But I'm doing one for the Grange Estate, which is in Havertown. It was a house used during the Revolutionary War. John Ross and Lafayette was there, George Washington was there. So, and that's not women's history, but the Grange asked me to do it, the Historical Society. And same with Salisbury Historical Society in Gap. They want me to do one for Lafayette. And so I've done, you know, I do. If they want me to help, I'll do it. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
As an artist, we get the question, well, how long did it take you to do this? So do you have a certain average time that you spend on a project?
I always say 9 months to
Okay.
birth an idea or birth my creative project. Always give myself the 9 months, you know, because I can relate, you know, a woman, you know, to birth the idea, that's all, you know, and sometimes, but like Christmas time, I always have to do the Christmas card. I don't start it until after Thanksgiving, and I have 2 cats, and you know, when it's like trying to paint with cats, they want to walk across, so I have to lock them out of my office, my basement office, and I can get a painting done in 3 hours if I really put my mind to it. But otherwise, it'll take me like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then I have to print them and all that, and then the cards, and a lot of the cards I do on some of the women's history note cards. And when I go to these art shows, like I went to an art show up in Williamsport last year, and the woman all her envelopes were these brown ones. And they looked really nice with all her cards. And I said, where'd you get those? She said, Michael's. I went in and bought like $100 worth of envelopes the next day. Because when I find something, I really, you know, and then packaging the note cards. It took me a year to figure out how to make the note cards on a color copier. Buy the heavy card stock. Make sure you have your copyright on it. That's important. And, you know, and then packaging. So in the beginning I was buying these little drawstring bags that you could see through, like, you know, material that you could see through. And I would buy like 150 at a time. And when I bought the first batch, somebody said, you should tell them they're for your business and you'll get a corporate discount. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. You know, this is how you learn the hard way. And so then I started I went to a couple other shows, and people just used that raffia and tie them. So I like the ribbon, so I buy a different color of ribbon and do that. But then I saw you can take sheets of music, like from old piano books, like when you were a kid, which I have a whole bunch of, and you can sew them, and you slide your note cards in there. And so I thought, I like to do creative things, so I might try that this year. But anyway, I really enjoy doing the art. I joined your art group back in October because I thought I had finished the book. It takes me 6 months to write a book, and from January till June, I worked on the book and then worked with the printer and all, and it came out in September. And so I joined because I thought, I'd really like to do more art. It's hard, I work for the lawyers still, 9 to 2 every day, except I'm off on Fridays. So I have off, from 2 o'clock on, and then, but I get paid good money, so I don't really want to give it up yet. And so, I brought those are little handouts in case you want. I told the publisher that if anybody calls, ask for Tammy. She's really helpful. But
I found it funny, humorous, that your mom, who didn't want you to go to college, is with a school. So you said she's the registrar for a
yes,
school?
and she was grandfathered in. Now her job, you have to have a college degree. And she was there. She worked till she was 85. She just died a year and a half ago. But my mom was like.
But she was secretary.
She was the registrar. She
Yeah.
did all the grades. She was not artistic. She would be sitting in the waiting room, and she'd count. If it had roses, she'd count them. And we're like, your poor mind. She would be like worrying about, was it a C minus or a C plus? All the grades for the school, that's all she ever worked on her whole life. So I think that's why, we'd make fun of her, because she was always like counting things. It's like, there's 47 roses on that wallpaper. We're like, wow, Mom, that's what I would do.
How long did you say that the printer usually takes to do your?
Oh, well,
I know once the setup is done, the next time you get it printed is much faster because they already have all that, but
it takes about 30 days. And what I do is they make you pay half the payment when you order it, and then when they're ready to be shipped, you make the other half. That's all and then they're on their way, and it's print on demand, which I think it's really much easier for me. And that way I don't have all these books.
Do they resend a proof at least each time?
No, they have a special reorder form. You have to use their forms. And then like in the front, in the acknowledgments, I always get, anyone who's a live, living person, you need a release. You cannot just put someone's name in your book without a release if they're alive. So I have all those, and then I give each one of those people a copy, of the book for themselves. And, a lot of my friends are like, oh, my name's in a book. They're all so excited,
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun, and people will call me up and, they'll just order people. I have a website, so they order through there.
I was just gonna ask you where you sell most of your books.
I do talks on women's history, and then I have like a couple little shops, like the Grange, Newtown Square Historical Society. They have the paper mill and the Square Tavern. So there's different places that I'll sell them. And you can use like a consignment agreement, which I didn't do in the beginning, but I do now. And it's just a little, there's a book called Art Law that you can buy. It's like a handbook of art law, but it's $100. But you could probably read stuff like online, but it's, you have to protect yourself. So you can't just, and it's an intellectual property. All your creative things are, it's your intellectual property. And so, like they say, when you put your artwork on your website, you have to like kind of make it a little blurry or put a line across it. So people will still steal your stuff. I've never come across any like copyright infringements or anything in my job. It's because I don't work for entertainment lawyers, but I've had copyright questions come up, and who do the lawyers come to? Me. They're like, you've done the copyright, what we gonna ask you? So.
You need a woman
Yeah.
to handle it.
Bottom line.
No
Right,
offense,
that's what
guys.
my bosses will say, well, you know more about it than I do, you do it,
Well,
But I do estates now, and wills, trusts, we do elder law. And I love elder law, it's really,
You're
I
still
used to
working
do
for the lawyers?
litigation,
You're
yeah.
still working for them?
Yeah, just 9 to 2, Monday through Thursday. Because my boss, my old bosses, they retired, and so, well, who am I going to work for? I said to my doctor, oh, who's gonna hire me? And my doctor said, if you're good, anybody will hire you. And the way she said it, I thought, yeah, I'm good. So I would go into like the interview, and I'd now, because I'm older, I would say, how about I come in on Saturday and work for you? And you see if you like me. Within an hour, they come out, when can you start? They know right away, because I take shorthand. I know I can do what a lawyer can do almost, except, paralegals can do what a lawyer can do, except you can't quote a fee and you can't settle a case. But I've gone to court, sat second chair with my boss in trials. And I said to my boss one time, I'm sitting second chair and he's the trial lawyer. And I said, I leaned over, I go, I can tell when you're gonna make an objection. He goes, how can you tell? I said, your chair squeaks. Because he'd start getting excited, he's getting ready to make his objection. I was like, I could get the chair. I'm like, so he goes, switch chairs with me, hurry up. He switched chairs. It was funny. It's like all this stuff. I said, this is like we're putting on a play. And when we're going to court, because we had to wear our certain outfits, we had our props, our exhibits, and and we're script. You have your questions you're going to ask the jury and all that voir dire and all that. And I said, he goes, well, it is kind of like, putting on a play. You have your lines and
It's a lot of work.
it is. And it costs money. It's more expensive to go into court. A lot of lawyers settle on the eve of trial. Most cases settle on the eve of trial. You rarely go to trial.
Because of the expense.
Yeah, because if you have expert witnesses, their fees double, just sitting around waiting to go to court. These guys are doctors and engineers. They don't want to sit around. They pay like $5,000 a day for expert witness fees. It's expensive. But that's why I like estates, because all the clients are passed away.
Don't complain much, right?
No argument back.
No, but it is nice, like winding up their affairs.
Well, you get family.
Yeah, oh yeah, we see that, like, I work for different lawyers, and my one lawyer would say, oh, the Irish, she would say Patrick's Day, she would say, oh, the Irish never get their wills till the last minute, because they think if they're going to make a will, they're going to die tomorrow. So we would have a lot of people come in like 96 years old getting their will done for the first time. We're like, oh my gosh, get in here, hurry up. It's fun. I like working for lawyers. It's not as bad as you think it would be. They're people just like anybody else. And when you treat them, some people put a lawyer way up on a pedestal. And when I do talks, I don't really say this much, but I would say when I went to Pendle Hill, I learned art. I said, because, working for lawyers, you have to know the rules of civil procedure, rules of appellate procedure, rules of criminal procedure. The only way you can be creative in a law firm is when you're doing the client's bill. And all lawyers get mad when I say that. They're like, oh, no. And I say, apologies to any lawyers in the audience. But that happened to me a couple times, so I kind of stopped saying it. But it's true, because sometimes it'd be like, wait, they would have to do their timesheets and get them in, and they're supposed to get them in on a daily basis. 30th of the month, they're all putting their time in, it's all inaccurate. They just make more work for themselves. But anyway, yeah.
So do you have an idea for a new book?
I thought of doing one on women scientists in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I come across a lot of women scientists. It's hard to find women artists to get markers for. I just put one up for Frances Tipton Hunter in Williamsport in June of last year. Because I contacted a lady up there, Mary Saminsky. She writes for the Williamsport Sun Gazette, and she does history articles about women. And so I thought, well, I need a place. I know I'm going to get this marker. Where would I put it? I don't want to go all the way up to Williamsport just to look around. So I called this lady, just cold called her, and said, I've been reading your articles for years. And she said, oh, I know where you could put it. And there's a park, and they have an art festival every year. Put it in the park, and so that's what we ended up doing. And but when I contacted her, she said, yeah, I know she's from Williamsport, but I don't see her national significance. And I said, she had 18 covers on the Saturday Evening Post. I think that's nationally significant. And she said, oh yeah, it is. And so you have to look from, pull away a little and look at your hometown and see, hey, yeah, those people did something really important here. And so I'm going to apply for another one for this year for Sarah Stillwell Weber from Concordville, Delaware County. She had 63 covers on the Saturday Evening Post. So they should be able to. These were women illustrators from like the 20s and 30s, with a lot of the babies, the little children, you know, those real old-fashioned little big calendars, and they were everywhere, you know, so,
I
yeah.
was interested to know where you put the markers, if their home isn't if their home isn't still in existence. I guess you have to get permission,
Yes,
parks, or
you do have to
if there
get,
is no park.
you do have to get permission from the owner, the person that lives in the house.
But what
Some
if there
people
is no
don't want the
house?
marker in front of their house.
But what if the house isn't there anymore?
I still would put it, you can still put it up and say this is where their
Oh, you have
home
to
used to
find out
be.
exactly where the house was, and you can put it on that spot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If, I guess if the
Yeah.
land's.
I was
free.
gonna show you, I have,
It's National Bagel Day.
Oops,
It
should have been a green one.
I was gonna, try to find
Did you make it?
No.
some of the markers.
Well, we do see markers. The problem is some of those signs are so small. I mean, there's a marker in Westchester for women. It's the blue marker near the, what is the library or the Heritage?
The History Center, that was my first one.
Right, and that's,
First Women's Rights Convention.
right, the Women's Rights Convention in Westchester.
Yeah,
Who knew?
this is, there it is.
Yeah.
That's my first one, that's the Women's Rights Convention. 4 years after Seneca Falls. The first Women's Rights Convention was in 1848 in New York. And so
I've
this,
been to both.
oh, yeah, I've been there a few times. That's Dr. Ann Preston from West Grove. These are just other, they're not in any order. I'm just going through looking. This is Grace Anna Lewis and her house and farm.
It's amazing that some of the houses are still.
That's Kimberton Boarding School.
Oh, I know that.
But now it's a
Oh,
coffee
yeah.
house or something?
Yeah, there's a bar and restaurant right there.
Yeah, there it is. And that was used as a
That's an
boarding
underground.
school.
Right,
The
right.
Underground Railroad.
And these were, this is her artwork, Grace Anna Lewis's artwork, and she got,
saw her stuff.
yeah, she got, awards. This is Anna Howard Shaw, her house, and there's her marker, that's in media.
A lot in Delaware County.
Yeah,
But who actually does the physical putting? That would be hard, wouldn't it?
the municipality.
Oh,
They have to dig the hole, and they don't charge me anything for doing that either. They dig the hole, they set the pipe.
What's her last name?
This is steel, but this is all fiberglass.
Oh.
I used to think this was steel, but
Yeah, it looks
it's not.
steely. Yeah.
It's real light, because a
Yeah.
couple of them been hit by cars,
Oh.
and you can see that, you know how a Corvette, when it's in an
Yeah,
accident?
you can see the
Yeah.
fiberglass.
Yeah.
So where do you live so we can put a marker up for you?
They would be dead first.
Well, that's the plan.
Oh, okay.
You should start writing your book.
Yeah, I was thinking of writing fiction, but I'm better at nonfiction.
Finding the
You know what I
history.
mean? This was Hawk Mountain,
Mm.
this lady, I put up a marker there, and you see this pin?
I gotta go there.
Oh,
Dragonfly.
Dragonfly.
When I put the marker up for this woman's grandmother, she was at the dedication and she had the pin on. And I said, I know that pin. It was so cool.
This is great.
There's the one for Hawk Mountain. And she was from New York. She came down here in Pennsylvania, bought the whole mountain. Because she was tired of people killing all the hawks and the eagles and things. And so, and then she went back to New York. I thought it was pretty cool. That's the first Women's Rights Convention again. Oh, that's the one, my mom, she wants her ashes at the Williamson's Trade School. That's me. So I said, Mom, I'll get one because it's a Quaker. He was a Quaker, Mr. Williamson. So most of mine in the beginning, I had them all Quakers. And I thought, well, there aren't a lot of these markers. A lot of these women were not married. They were single. And so I thought, you know, maybe that's why they got forgotten in history, because they had no one saying, my grandmother was someone important.
Right, there was no history to keep.
Yeah, and so I said, my mom said, so I did one for her, so I said, Mom, that way I'll have a reason to come to Williamson after you're gone. So I did do that. This is a statue. This is Elizabeth Thorne. Oh,
There you go,
she's pregnant. She's 6 months pregnant.
with the
This
shovel.
is in Gettysburg. She was at the battle at Evergreen Cemetery. Her and her father buried 89 soldiers. There were dead horses, dead soldiers all over. People from town came to help them bury them. They got sick, the people from town couldn't help, and they left. She did it. She and the father was elderly. Her husband was serving in the war, and he was in like Maryland at the time. And that's her name, Elizabeth Thorne. That's in Gettysburg. These are all New York. This is the women's, there's Susan B. Anthony, that's her house. And this is another pregnant statue. She is Martha Wright, Lucretia Mott's sister. She was 6 months pregnant at the Women's Rights Convention in 1848. How many times have you seen a pregnant statue? Hardly ever. You know, you see the Madonna at Christmas cards. But when I saw these statues, I mean, I went around them so many times, I just enjoyed looking at them thinking, I can't believe it. They're showing women. You know, women were here and they were doing the work. And they were pregnant.
And the statues were created during that
No.
time period?
No, those are replicas, and there's like a whole room full of them in the Hall of Fame in Seneca Falls. And, you know, it's just to depict the people that were attending.
Women artists did them, or men? I mean, who created the statues, do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
Oh, this
And-
is Berks
and-
County.
I
You
know
guys
that place.
know where that is?
Yeah.
Mary Archer.
Yes.
She's in my second, she was a suffragist. The state would not give me a marker for her. I mean, I thought they would. Her and her sister, they owned like 2,500 acres outside of Reading. This is their farm.
Yeah, I've been there.
This is called Flying Hills Farm. This farm was used during World War I as a women's land army training center. Her and her sister taught women how to milk cows and all that. And then when she died, she left 10 acres and formed the Berks County SPCA, or whatever it is, animal thing.
Animal Rescue League.
Yeah, animal rescue.
That was the women from the league. And the one, the Archer, that Mary Archer, the Archer family, they also had a house in Reading, in the town, and they lived like a block from the church. The father had a tunnel built underground so the family could walk to church on Sunday and not have to go out in the cold or the rain or the snow. I thought, wow, they must have had some money.
Yeah.
And so when they died, they left their money to the archdiocese. That's another one, the Atkinson family up at Upper Dublin Friends Meeting. Their family was on the Underground Railroad. And Wilmer Atkinson, he was what we call a suffragette. He supported women in their fight for the right to vote. And this was, he started the Farm Journal in Philadelphia, the magazine for farmers. It's still published today. And I met the family members of him. You know, I'm still friends with them. I end up being friends with all these people. And this was, he had given them a desk for the women's suffrage headquarters. He paid for a typewriter to be rented. They rented typewriters in those days. And this was Ethel Waters, you know, Stormy Weather, the song Stormy Weather. That was hers. She lived in Chester. And she was a maid at Swarthmore College. And then she would sing in Philadelphia. Then she would go to Baltimore and sing. And finally she went to Broadway. And she was one of the highest paid stars in Broadway during the 1930s. This is Bala Farm in Westchester, another farm used as a women's land army training center. That's not mine, that was just one, I went up there and visited.
have that one too.
That's the new one for Caroline. This was still in the box. It wasn't even unpackaged. But it's in the book this way because it wasn't up when the book came out, so. But this is my most recent one. But there was a delay because of COVID for a lot of the materials for these, so we had to wait for some of them.
You also mentioned that it's national though, that other people are doing the same thing in the States?
Yeah, for the,
So this is a national thing?
yeah. I'm trying to find one of the other ones. These are just old photos I like. The Mendenhalls. The Slinky toy.
Oh, yeah.
The wife, the husband, had a nervous breakdown, and he invented it, and then he went and lived in South America. He left the family, he left the wife with 6 kids, and said, "You can have the company." And she turned the company around because they invented this little slinky dog. Remember that?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
That
I
was
do.
what turned the company around.
Where is this located? Where is
In
it?
Clifton Heights, in Delaware County, on
Okay.
Baltimore Pike,
Okay.
on Springfield Road. Yeah, he went to Westtown School. So that's my grandson. That's my son.
Cute.
Yes.
That's Hannah Patterson, right square in the middle. And that's one I got for the Mendenhalls. Their farm was used in the Underground Railroad. I put Isaac in there, you know, because he helped. I helped. That's Dinah. That's Dr. Kent. There's Dr. Preston's. Anyway, that was what we did. I did a play, formed a women's theater group, and we did the first and a reenactment of the first Women's Rights Convention in 1852. Because somebody said to me, "Oh, you know, you should get in touch with Dr. Moorhead down at Westchester University." And so I went over to their house, and he served me and his wife dinner. He wore an apron and served us spaghetti dinner. And he gave me the script. And he said, "We're retiring to South Carolina, take it and run with it." And they gave me 2 costumes. And so that's how I ended up doing the play. And that's what we did. We did it like 97. We did it at our Sinus College, London Grove Friends meeting, at the Women's Conference. And it was all volunteers. And there's that other statue, the side view. These are the Windsor sisters. They were suffragists. 2 sisters, never married. They were anarchists. One was an anarchist, one was a socialist. And when women got the right to vote, they said, "We don't want to vote now." Because anarchists believe, you can't force me to do what I want, I can do whatever I want. And so that's what they did. I was like, after all that, she went to England and worked with Emmeline Pankhurst over in England. And the weird thing about these 2 is, when I went to find their death date, they both died on the same day, same year. What happened is they were living together, and the sister found the other sister dead, and they think she had a heart attack after finding her sister dead. And they both, because it was in Ardmore, they were living in Ardmore, and there were all these newspapers that were writing about it, like it was big news. So, but anyway, I better wrap it up. I don't have a watch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.